Hello everyone, this is Jay High from Couch and Keyboard, and we have another Smash player profile, this time for Dawson. A pretty good melee puff that is invited to Full House Siege. Was able to get one of the vote-in spots, and let's kind of go over their history. So pretty much got started in 2016, and nothing too crazy. Just continued to enter, mainly known for being in Philadelphia. And Philadelphia is, sometimes a little bit smaller in terms of like high skill compared to New York, New Jersey, and all that. But they were pretty good. Starting to get some good wins, steadily improving, getting some wins on Chem, Slug, Juicebox, 404 Cray, Swift, etc. Now, none of these were necessarily ranked wins. I think that it seems like some parts of Tri-State were steadily getting better, but didn't always have the opportunity to be able to show how good they were. But a lot of these players played a ton, and specifically, doing decent in the Puff Ditto, getting some wins here. But also, Chem and Dawson would just play so often that it became a meme. Instead of wanting any other matchup, Kim Dawson, me want Kim Dawson now. Kim Dawson now up the rest now. I heard this was like a Dark Gen X thing. Here's SF also saying it. Me want Kim Dawson now. It's kind of just been something that stood out to me. It was pretty funny. So Dawson clearly familiar with the Fox matchup. Also, a few good things here and there. Had a pretty good SmashCon Fall Fest being Nintendo. And just in general, doing pretty solid. I say Chem is, consistently getting the better of Dawson, but still, when you have that experience, that's going to help you. And then in 2022, finally started getting some good wins. Puff Peach is going to be tough. Puff Sheik is going to be tough. Puff Ices can be tough sometimes. I know Lunadusk was sometimes good at Puff Ditto, which Dawson has experience in. But did also get wins on Ginger and Lucky. So this was a pretty big deal. Did get ranked in nearly top 70 for 2022. So pretty solid. It was difficult for Dawson to get like that huge win. More so consistency. We see Swooper wins. Franz, Moth, B-Bats again. Get some Marths here and there. That's not too bad. Pretty consistent. I would say, getting a Chem win never hurts. But Dawson is just not necessarily like one of those upper echelon puffs. Like, yeah, getting ranked is very impressive. But when you look at the puffs that we see here, we see HBox. Then pretty far down, we see Toussaint. We see Lunar Dust as secondary. And we see SDJ. And then we see Dawson. The following year, we saw a few other puffs make some upsets. SDJ getting better. Faust getting that J-Mook win. Khalid doing pretty good at some stuff. CPU Zero from AZ started to do better. Even like Lunar Dusk, Palpa, Panko. Like, that's a lot of puffs above Dawson. Shango not far behind. So I think that Dawson is kind of just blending in. And I'm familiar with Dawson because, MVA and I'm familiar with like the Northeast and whatnot. So like Dawson kind of was there. But sometimes it's just kind of hard to differentiate yourself. And we did get some Salt wins. I mentioned this in my Salt video. This was at the pre-local for Patchwork in North Carolina. So some people didn't necessarily count that very much. Outside of that, they get wins on Lucky, Moth, Ben, Wally, some wins in the Ditto. But also just beating Salt, even if it's a pre-local, twice. I think that's impressive. 2024 did get in the top 60 range. So that was pretty good. Not on a lot of the summer rankings, because summer usually only does top 50. So getting outside the top 50 means that you're not going to be on the summer ranking probably. But still pretty good. We see overall, in terms of puffs, SGJ consistently becoming second best, kind of differentiate themselves. HBox still in top 10. In terms of puffs, yeah, Khalid, Faust, Toussaint, Dawson. A few of these just barely ahead of Dawson. So in terms of relevance, in terms of puffs, Dawson is starting to get up there. 2024, 2025. Crudo win, very good. Wins on Ben, multiple ice climbers, Puff Ditto, Mars. We're seeing we're not seeing that many Fox wins. It's more so other matchups. Even though I would say that Chem Dawson, like having that Fox, is probably the most experienced. We also see having some slug experience, so having a decent amount of time against ice climbers. Puff, I'd say, does pretty well, but also if you get grabbed, you can die really easily. But that's kind of just ices in general. But was able to get into the top 50 for the summer and the end of the year. So this is probably the best year of Dawson's career. And for 2025, was able to be 1-2, and I believe third best Puff. Yeah, barely beating out Faust. Was able to do pretty good there. And SCJ was able to get top 10. So the difference from 2 to 3 is a pretty big gap. And we also have Eve, Zasa, Eve from MDVA, Zasa from NC, OG Kid from Florida. We're seeing some other puffs still staying relevant. The character is, there's a decent amount of players that are good playing Puff. So that is sometimes challenging for people to, I mentioned in a different one with SDJ, that the more Puff gets relevant, the more people have experience. But people had some feedback saying that that's kind of taking the agency out of the Puff player. And I wasn't necessarily intending to, but I kind of see their point. To where it gets to where Dawson can also adapt. It's not only, I think HBox in people's minds was such a roadblock and a boss for people to defeat, that it was, you can finally defeat him. You have unlocked the treasure of the strategy. And that's not really the case. The Puff player can also adapt. So that was fair points from those people. But so Dawson has entered a lot. If we look at events, 681 total events, about half of them being online, half of them being offline. So consistently enters a lot of online stuff. I think that's valuable in terms of experience. So getting the local scene in Philadelphia, getting a lot of stuff there, but also getting some different matchups online. Dawson is definitely putting a lot of time into playing Smash, and is definitely impressive. Now, Dawson has also traveled a decent amount. One of the few players that actually have sets against the other 15 players. Wizrobe is close, but didn't play Saucy Main. Dawson has played Saucy Main. So we have enough data to know kind of what to expect from Dawson. Mostly losses. Does have those wins on Salt at that pre-local, and does have wins on Dark Gen X and Saucy Main. So as a whole, Dawson not looking too hot. I would say probably the third to lowest seed, just ahead of Dark Gen X from what I can tell. Let's see. Yeah. So Dawson being 48, Dark Gen X being 60. You also have None, which I don't know if None qualified. Okay, yeah, there it is, 26. So, yeah, I would say that's probably going to be the third to lowest seed. In terms of recency, we haven't seen a ton from Dawson in the Ditto. Yeah, online, but a decent amount of players, a lot of Foxes. So while a lot of the chem sets were longer ago, we still see a little bit of lack of experience against some of these top species here, and in the Puff Ditto. So I do think there's a lot of potential for Dawson to do well. I think it may be more similar to Saucy Main in terms of having that Puff experience there. People are going to want to play against Dawson. I do think that people are pretty familiar with the Puff matchup, and HBox has not always been necessarily revolutionizing as much as Rapham has recently. for Luigi. I think it's been much more of a quicker pace. While H-Box has, been top 3 last year. Still doing pretty well, only losing to Sunsei and Cody. That's a tough ninth, losing to first and third of the tournament. And then, getting the run back against Moki, getting third out of the blue. I think H-Box is, going to be one of the higher seeds. I think that Dawson is someone that will be able to be there, and I don't necessarily see a lot of stylistic similarities between Dawson and H-Box, but is a good puff, last year's third best puff. So I think that is going to be a valuable experience for people. I definitely see Dawson. I mean, Dawson enters a ton, plays a ton. I think Dawson's going to be down for these matchups. I can see people like, maybe J-Mook wants to, J-Mook has been really, really close to beating H-Box a lot. Has beaten H-Box a few times. But if you want to stay fresh on that matchup, I could see J-Mook wanting to have Dawson experience. I can see even Rat Monster. Rat Monster's sometimes struggled in the Puff matchup. Went pretty close with SCJ, but ultimately lost that tournament. Lost to Zasa twice at Bare Necessities. I could see that, there's a benefit there. And yeah, I do think Dawson is probably favored against Dark Genix and Saucy Main. I had said in the Dark Genix video, I think that is probably Dark Genix's one of the better chances of doing all right. But I do think Dawson is, pretty experienced against Spaceys, but has not always had the most upsets against Spaceys. I think that some people are very confident against Puff, but I think you can catch some people by surprise. I do predict Dawson will get 13th. I do think that it will be challenging. Could potentially get that losers, get that third round of Swiss win. But I do think Dawson is going to ultimately tie for last, even if he gets a win in Swiss, because 2 people go 0-3 in Swiss, while 4 people go lose in losers round 1. So I think Dawson will win one set, but ultimately tie for last. But I do think is just like Saucy Main can be potentially a big boost in experience. I think for the Fox people, I guess maybe Sunsei can benefit, but they're all pretty close to the top. Falcon, none's been out of the game for a little bit, but still very good. Salt might be grinding, but Salt already plays a ton. I think that for Puff and Luigi, being that secondary person is going to be very valuable. And I think that Dawson can potentially make another top 50 push. We've seen, doing pretty good. So far this year, nothing too insane. Kev Bot, been doing pretty good recently, getting that Nikki win last year. Frostbite been doing better. Beating Daniel. Shoutouts to Daniel. Yeah, so having a solid year, I think that this might be another kind of case to where Dawson doesn't make top 50, but is still a shoe-in for top 100, in the top 75 kind of range. But I think Dawson can make the most of this. Dawson's been traveling a lot, usually staying East Coast, but also, sometimes going to Genesis, main stage, etc. So I'm very curious to see how Dawson will do. I do think while some people kind of have their attention more in SCJ as that other Puff, mixing it up a little bit, having Dawson there could prove to be interesting. If nothing else than a practice partner, but I think Dawson has a lot of potential to get on the board versus some of these players. So we'll have to see.